It's 11:18 p.m., and you're closing the small convenience store where you've worked the night shift for almost 2 years. The register says you're short $12. You already know why. A kid came in earlier asking for food. You let him walk out with a sandwich and a drink. You tell yourself you'll cover it tomorrow. Your life is small, predictable. Rent, work, sleep, repeat. You've learned how to keep your head down. Then the police lights fill the parking lot. You don't know yet that this is the last normal moment you'll have for years. 2 officers walk in and start asking questions about a robbery that happened 3 blocks away. A man was beaten badly. They say witnesses saw someone wearing a jacket like yours running from the scene. You try to explain you've been here all night. The cameras should show that. The officers exchange a look. One of them says the cameras in this place malfunction a lot. Within 20 minutes, you're in the back of a police car. Within 12 hours, you're sitting in a courtroom with a public defender who has met you exactly 6 minutes ago. Within 3 months, you're stepping through steel doors into a prison that holds over 3,000 men, most of whom belong to someone. Your sentence is 8 years. You tell yourself you'll survive quietly. You're wrong. Your first lesson comes on day 3. You're sitting alone at a metal table when 3 inmates sit down across from you. They don't introduce themselves. They don't threaten you. They just ask where you're from, who you know, what you ran with on the outside. The answer is nothing. That's the problem. In prison, being nobody is dangerous. The tallest one leans forward and explains the situation carefully, like he's explaining the rules of a workplace. This prison is controlled by a cartel network operating inside the walls. They manage contraband, protection, gambling, debts, phones, drugs, and information. Nothing moves without their approval. Everyone contributes. Everyone belongs somewhere. You ask what happens if you don't. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. Then you belong to everyone. You understand immediately what that means. They give you a choice, work for them, or spend 8 years as prey. You agree before they finish the sentence. That's how your life inside the prison cartel begins, not with power, but with survival. Your first role is the lowest level of control, runner. It's not glamorous, it's not safe, but it keeps you alive. You carry messages between cell blocks. You memorize numbers, delivery times, and instructions. You never write anything down. Phones exist, but they're limited and dangerous. Most communication moves through people like you. At first, you think you're just passing along harmless information. Then you start realizing what those messages actually mean. One slip of paper you deliver leads to a man being stabbed 2 days later. Another message cancels a hit that was already planned. Sometimes you're transporting small packages, tobacco, pills, small bags of powder wrapped in plastic and tape. You're told never to ask questions. You don't. Because runners who ask questions don't stay runners long. You learn the structure quickly. The cartel inside the prison mirrors the structure outside. At the bottom are runners like you. Above you are collectors, the inmates responsible for enforcing debts and gathering payments from gambling rings, drug sales, and protection arrangements. Above them are block captains. Each housing unit has one. They control territory, resolve conflicts, and ensure revenue flows upward. Above the captains sit lieutenants who coordinate operations across multiple blocks. And somewhere above everyone is the shot caller, the man whose word carries across the entire prison. You don't meet him for the first year, but every decision traces back to him. Your job teaches you something important. Control in prison isn't about violence. Violence is the last step. Control is about information. You see who owes money, who's afraid, who talks to guards, who breaks rules.
You see the patterns. You also notice something else. Most runners are reckless. They forget instructions, they skim product, they panic under pressure. You don't. You treat every task like a problem that needs solving. How to move contraband past searches, how to communicate without being overheard, how to avoid creating patterns that guards can track. After 6 months, someone notices. A lieutenant calls you over during yard time and asks how many deliveries you've handled. You tell him the number. He asks how many problems you've caused. 0. That answer changes everything. Within a year, you're promoted. You become a collector. Now you're responsible for money. The cartel runs multiple revenue streams inside the prison: drug sales, gambling pools, phone rentals, protection payments, and commissions on contraband smuggled through guards or visitors. Every week, thousands of dollars move through the system. Your job is to make sure debts get paid. At first, you think that means intimidation. It doesn't. Your real job is assessment. You learn to read people. Some debtors are scared. They'll pay if given time. Some are liars. They'll stall forever unless pressured. Some are dangerous enough that pushing them too hard creates bigger problems. You develop a system, payment schedules, quiet negotiations, strategic threats that don't require actual violence. Your numbers improve. Violence drops in the areas you manage. Revenue increases. The lieutenants notice again. But power inside a prison cartel never grows without risk. 2 years into your sentence, a collector under you disappears. Everyone knows what that means. The rumor spreads fast. He skimmed money. The cartel's rules are absolute. Theft from the organization is betrayal. That night, the block captain calls a meeting. You stand in a circle of 10 men while the lieutenant explains the situation. The missing collector handled $30,000 over 3 months. Several payments never reached the chain. Someone stole, someone lied, and someone is going to pay. The lieutenant looks at you. You worked closest with him. You find out what happened. This is your first real test of authority. You start quietly. You retrace collections, talk to debtors, compare payment records. Within days, you see the pattern. The missing collector didn't steal alone. He was splitting money with a guard. But something went wrong. Either the guard panicked or the collector demanded more than agreed. The collector vanished. You bring the information to the lieutenant. Now the cartel has a choice: expose the guard and risk losing a valuable smuggling channel, or absorb the loss. They choose a third option: control the guard. You help design the leverage. Evidence of the scheme, payment records, witness statements, enough to destroy the guard's career and freedom. The message reaches him quietly. Now he works for the cartel, full time. That moment teaches you the real mechanics of power. Violence solves problems once. Leverage solves them forever. By your 4th year in prison, you're no longer a collector. You're a block captain. Now you control territory. 300 inmates, multiple revenue streams, dozens of runners and collectors under you. Your responsibility is stability. Fights, debts, smuggling routes, alliances between gangs, all of it passes through you. Every day is a series of decisions with consequences that ripple across the prison. A gambling ring collapses because someone can't pay. You decide whether to break his arm or extend his credit. 2 rival groups argue over drug territory. You decide whether to mediate or allow violence to settle it. A new inmate arrives claiming connections to the cartel outside. You decide whether he's legitimate or a liar looking for protection. Every choice affects money. Every mistake affects power. Over time, you realize something unsettling. You're good at this. Better than most people who've spent their lives in the system. You see strategies others miss. You prevent conflicts before they explode. You identify threats early. The cartel's revenue grows under your block. Your reputation spreads. That's when the shot caller finally summons you. You're brought to a quiet room near the prison chapel where several senior members sit around a table. The shot caller doesn't look like what you expected. He's calm, methodical, almost corporate. He asks simple questions. How much revenue does your block generate monthly? What percentage comes from drugs versus gambling? Which guards are reliable? Which gangs are becoming unstable? You answer everything because you've already studied it.
At the end of the conversation, he nods once. Promotion. You become a lieutenant. Now your control extends across multiple blocks, thousands of transactions, hundreds of participants. You spend less time enforcing rules and more time designing systems. You reorganize the gambling operations so that profits flow more predictably. You restructure contraband distribution routes to reduce interception by guards. You introduce strict accounting methods for collectors. Your goal becomes efficiency, because efficiency increases power. The cartel begins operating like a corporation. Revenue doubles within 2 years. Outside partners, cartel contacts on the streets start routing money through your prison network for laundering and coordination. You're now managing operations worth millions annually, all from inside a prison. But power attracts enemies. A rival prison gang decides the cartel has grown too strong. They start targeting runners, disrupting collections, spreading rumors. The situation escalates quickly. You face a choice. War inside the prison could lead to lockdowns that destroy operations for months. But backing down invites weakness. You propose a different strategy. Instead of attacking the rival gang directly, you target their revenue. You disrupt their gambling rings. You intercept their contraband shipments. You recruit their debt collectors with better offers. Within weeks, their finances collapse. Without money, their authority evaporates. Their leader approaches you quietly, asking for terms. You accept. They become subordinate to the cartel. The prison stabilizes again. Your influence grows. By the 7th year of your sentence, the shot caller trusts you with something unprecedented. You're placed in charge of strategic operations across the entire prison, not just enforcing rules, designing the system. You analyze guard rotations, contraband routes, financial flows, gang alliances, and external cartel connections. The prison cartel becomes a network so integrated that even the administration unknowingly depends on it to maintain order, because chaos hurts everyone, including the guards. You begin realizing the strange truth of your life. You entered prison as a nobody. Now you control one of the most sophisticated underground economies in the state correctional system, and the outside world has no idea. Eventually, your release date approaches. 8 years pass faster than you ever expected. The cartel leadership meets to discuss the transition. They offer you a position outside, a liaison, someone who coordinates operations between prison networks and street organizations. It's more money than you've ever imagined, more power than you ever planned to have. But it also means something else. You will never leave this world. Because once you understand how systems of control work, how power flows through fear, loyalty, leverage, and money, you can't pretend you don't see it anymore. The day you walk out of prison, the sun feels unfamiliar. Freedom should feel simple, but your phone rings before you even reach the parking lot. A number you recognize, a voice you know. A new prison facility has instability in its internal operations. They need someone to rebuild the hierarchy. You look at the open road ahead of you. Then you think about everything you learned inside. Control, structure, power, and the strange reality that you've become one of the few people who truly understands how these hidden systems operate. You realize the truth quietly. Your sentence ended today, but your life inside the prison cartel system is just beginning.